too much stimulation. There used to be a day when we were bored and quiet, and we would listen, and we would feel, and we would connect a little bit more with what we were feeling during the day. And nowadays, we just don't do that, and it's critical for our mental health. We're seeing a rise in mental health issues. Some mental health issues are said to be the leading cause of disability by the year 2030, moving past cancer and heart disease. So definitely, it's critical for us to take a stand and learn how to pay attention in the moment to how we think, how we feel, and just shut the browsers down.
Yeah, I love that definition of it. Yes. And, before it became a buzzword, right? Before it became something trendy to do, Elena, this is something that you're very well versed in, and maybe you can help us understand where this even field came from and how it's been used by ancient traditions and ages gone by.
I think one of the most important things to remember is that these practices are thousands of years old. And when we tap into them, we are tapping into something so ancient, so grounded. We have to remember that. It's exactly what the plants are doing for us. In modern day, other communities that have used it, the medical community is starting to really use it in a very big way. In schools, this is the best. We're seeing improved grades. We're seeing improved college admission statistics. We're even seeing improved testing results. In prisons, using mindfulness programs, we're seeing decreased stress, decreased anxiety, better health in the prison, and more involvement in the prison community. We're also seeing it used in companies, law firms, tech companies, where in these places mindfulness programs are actually helping decrease medical costs and increase leadership skills. The biggest part is when that information gets used back around on kids. There's actually a program in Kenya right now that's being used on girls, get this, ages 6 to 16. It's called Girls on Fire Leaders, and they're teaching mindfulness to these girls. And as a result, over the last several years, we have had not just improved grades, we've had lower incidences of child marriage and maternity. We've had higher incidences of community involvement and creativity. The girls are the ones designing the programs. Once they are given the mindfulness, they start designing programs for their communities. They start solving the problems for their communities and teaching the youngest girls. And that's starting to really change things.
Wow, that's powerful. Incredible. So that is a great definition, I think, of modern and existing mindfulness techniques and what it means and stuff. So let's dive into the science a little bit more, right? I think that's one of the things that we all want to understand is why. Why do we need mindfulness in our lives? And so, Eliza, I'm going to ask you a question. Eliza McCoke, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask you our first question as we dive into the science. What happens to our brains when we engage in a mindfulness practice? Additionally, how do we know when and what and how to safely and effectively use essential oils to support us emotionally and mentally?
So the science is actually very interesting, and I back-ended my way into mindfulness because of the science. Just because I worked in the healthcare field, I was not taught about this sort of practice and what it did to the brain. And it's very interesting because we can prove what mindfulness and our presence actually is doing in the brain through PET scans. PET scans look at the temperature of the brain, whether it's activated. MRI scans, same thing. When we do that with contrast, we can see where the brain lights up. So it's interesting when you look at studies of people that have a daily meditating practice or in the process of meditating and they're scanning their brains. You're seeing areas of the front of the brain light up. So attention, cognition, the limbic system light up, which is such a big theme as we're talking about this new combo pack that we have for mood management and for stress. And also that part of the brain that deals with mind wandering. And so we've scientifically also proven that people that have a daily meditation mindfulness practice actually have thicker brains. The gray matter in their brain is actually thicker. So in wellness, we tend to be so focused on food, exercise, supplements, right? But this is exercising your brain. So mindfulness now has become the tool to actually exercise the muscle of your brain, and this is why what Elena is saying, you're seeing improvements in attention, improvements in memory, improvements in mood management, and the ability to be better at giving someone your presence, which is really one of the greatest gifts that we can give people. So I don't know about you, but I'd like a thicker brain. Like, tell me how to do it, you know?
And that's such a great transition into our next question. We have Dr. Melissa Esfera here with us. And yes. Would you elaborate on the why of the combination of mindfulness and essential oils is so powerful? What's happening within the body? And Eliza gave us, started going down that path. Will you even elaborate more? What's happening inside of the body with the two combined, the mindfulness and the oils? Yes.
Well, everything on the planet carries its own vibrational frequency. And if that concept is kind of new to you, it was to me, even as early as as soon as 5 years ago, I really started exploring this concept. So if that's new to you, a cool resource is to look at Dr. Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief. And another really good one is Molecules of Emotion by Dr. Candace Pert. Those two PhDs did a beautiful job researching really what happens on a vibrational level inside of our bodies, on truly a cellular level, to our health and wellness when we start to consider these emotional components. Things like mindset and words and belief patterns. They carry their own vibrational frequency. And like Eliza was saying, you know, of course in the field of health and wellness, especially in the field that I'm in, functional medicine, we focus so much on plant remedies like food, herbs, essential oils, and supplements. And those carry a very heavy weight in therapeutic protocols, of course. But I would actually argue that now in 2019, what we're seeing in research is mindfulness medicine is just as important, because those words and the frequencies and the belief of those belief patterns inside our cells, they're literally changing that internal cellular environment. I call it the cell soup. So you can think of your cell soup and your cells looking at like a goldfish in a water tank, right? So has anybody had a goldfish in here? A lot of, okay. I probably should have never had a goldfish, because truthfully that thing just never thrived in my home. But when he did get sick, the first thing that we did was we changed the water. And that's really all you can do when a goldfish is sick, is change the water. There's no medicine for goldfish. Maybe there is, I'm not a vet. And so when the water changes, we notice that the goldfish would get better. And so that's exactly how you can start to look at your health, and the health of your cells, is what does my internal fishbowl look like? And does my water need to be changed? And if it does, you can take a little inventory of all the elements coming into your fishbowl and ask yourself, are these things contributing to the health of my cells or to the detriment of my cells? And so those elements to consider, of course, are mindfulness, belief patterns, your food, and the beautiful thing about essential oils, you guys, is they're addressing all of these elements. Essential oils, as Dr. Danielle Daniels just finished telling us about, they can affect our mind and our mood like that. You don't even have to really understand the how or the why. You just have to be willing to pop open that bottle. And so that's really the connection between the two.
That's incredible. It's such a, yes, what powerful information, right? I love that visual too, of the cell soup, is that what you called it? I love that, I'm gonna remember that. I hope you all wrote that down. So that actually takes us into our next question as well with Rebecca Hinsey, who has this incredible background in psychology. In fact, you're getting your doctorate in that right now. Is that true? Wonderful. And so more and more experts in the field of wellness as a whole are telling us that the body keeps score, and that's the biology belief too, right? It's a great transition. So, meaning if we don't effectively move through trauma and do the work, that we carry it with us. Now, what is the long-term impact of not providing the mind and the heart with relief?
Oh, boy. Well, we want to open a can of worms. There's some incredible research by Dr. Yehuda at Mount Sinai, and she teaches us, or she's actually was studying PTSD and resilience, and they ran into this incredible dynamic, which is that Holocaust victims were passing on the same genetic markers, or the same markers for stress, and the way they manage stress, onto their children and to their grandchildren. They also looked at a study that they took the same science and looked at it for 9/11 victims and found that the children from 9/11 victims were also holding the same markers for stress and trauma that their parents had had. So we have this interesting generational patterning thing that's going on. We certainly know that we pass along patterns through non-purposeful teaching in our families of origin, but when we look at the biological factors and think, oh, our ancestors have gone through trauma, we may have inherited that. If that's going backwards now, you said, why should we do this? Well, look forward. If you're in trauma in the moment, if you're living with stress and anxiety, if you are a parent and you have children, then the likelihood of you passing on that pattern of stress, the stress response into the next generation and the next generation is huge. And not only to scare you even a little bit more, but mothers, when you bear offspring, especially for females, so if you're having a girl, I don't know, Liza, are you having a girl? A boy, okay, so she's on it, but boys are still impacted, but girls are born with their eggs already developed in the womb. So when a mother is carrying a daughter, we're looking at 2 generations of impact. And you mentioned Candace Pert in her book, Molecules of Emotion. She references how a fetus is formed by the thoughts and feelings of what is happening with the mother and in her environment and her relationship. So, we are deeply connected to our family of origin. We're deeply connected to our ancestors and their thoughts and feelings, which leaves us sort of in a baton thing where we're handing the baton off, So if we're the receivers of that baton, and I'm looking around, I think most have children in this arena, right? And Ange has an 8 and 10-year-old, right, at home. So, you're raising a child and you're teaching them things at home, but what about that genetic piece? So you ask me why, I say we're talking about not only our own health, our own mind, our own wellness, but we're talking about the impact we have on a nation over time by the offspring that we carry. So, think on that for just a minute and think of our responsibility for that. Because if we continue in this pattern of not being aware and not paying attention to what we think and feel, we become more and more emotionally disconnected, and we pass along those tendencies to the next generation, and we can all kind of calculate what our world would look like if we don't take a stand and make a difference. Thank you, doTERRA, for giving us tools for that.
It's amazing that we have these tools in our hands that are so effective and so powerful, and I think we overlook it because of the simplicity, So now I'm going to ask my next question to Desiree Mengendog, who is she is a Chinese medical practitioner, and it's been so fun to get to know her and understand the work that she does. And so my question for you is, what protocol or practices have you seen to be effective and sustainable for creating long-term emotional health?
Okay. Well, to speak on the science, our brain and our heart emit an electromagnetic field. And the heart actually emits a field that is about 100 times, an electrical field 100 times stronger than the brain, and 5,000 times stronger. The magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain. So hence, a lot of our feelings are felt here in our heart. In Chinese medicine, all of our emotions are felt in the heart. And it is amazing how you can use problem is when you have an emotion that is chronic and persistent and intense and very strong, especially the ones that are very contracting, talking about fear and anxiousness and irritation and anger. It's wonderful to have those emotions with humans. We've got to experience that whole rainbow, but it becomes problematic when it is experienced for a very long period of time. And essential oils have this beautiful capability to move those frequencies, like Dr. Melissa was talking about, extremely quickly. So if you think about like a DVD, right? You play it. If you scratch a DVD, it doesn't play well, correct? Because you've interrupted the pattern. So I'm going to give you an amazing, simple essential oil that interrupts any kind of state that you are in. Would you like to know? And it is in every single enrollment kit. It is tea tree essential oil. So I'm going to show you where I put it to change my state in a moment, whether it's fear, anxiety, anger, I'm going to murder my husband. Tea tree, right on the inside of the wrist creases and back of the neck, goes to the brain. Dr. Danielle taught us about that occipital point. That is a phenomenal point to change the state of your brain and your thoughts. And one last thing I wanted to share is that if you want to change your thoughts, because we're talking about mindfulness, right? I want you to think of another word, heartfulness. Heartfulness. If you want to change your thoughts, I showed you how powerful the heart is. You want to change your emotions. If you don't change your emotions, you can't change your thoughts. You've got to tackle it from both angles.
That is so powerful. I should have brought a pen. Who's taking notes for me? So now that we've got ourselves familiar with what mindfulness is and a little more in depth what the science is, how about we talk about practical application, right? Who wants to walk out of here with some things to do? So I have a question for two of the panelists, so Elena Brower and Ange Peters. I look at these two women as masters of affirming what is good in life and being able to quiet the mind and get to a space of wholeness. And so my question for you ladies is, words from others and self-talk are powerful, and they impact more than we realize. How do we diffuse their charge and lessen the burden they create?
All right. Well, it's powerful to understand how we feel about ourselves and the narrative that we have, the self-talk that we have, how much that shapes our experience and our interactions with others. And this whole conversation had me thinking about a quote that I first heard in grade 12, 2 years ago. And it stuck with me ever since. And it goes like this: we see the world not as it is, but as we are. And I've never forgotten that. It just really stuck with me because I realized in that moment that we are really in control so much of our own experience. If you think about it, all of us here are experiencing this convention different than the person sitting next to us. We bring our experiences into this moment. We hear different things based on what we believe is possible, right? And so we actually do have so much control over how we can be the ripple effect in the world, how it really does start with us. And if we think about it, the more kind that we are with ourselves, the more kind we are with others, right? The more beauty and gifts that we see within ourselves, the more we see that in others. And this, of course, works in reverse. I know we've all been on the receiving end of hurtful actions or hurtful words, and we can really shift to a place of compassion when we understand that that's just a reflection of how that person is treating themselves, right? So we can really own this, and we have such a unique opportunity in doTERRA to use the oils as a powerful conduit for changing our thoughts and changing our emotions and moving forward and taking that upgrade.
Wow.
Ange has me thinking about a few things.
things. One is that words are things, thoughts are things. And the more we can realize that our attention is the way that we direct those things within ourselves, we're getting more free every minute. Our attention is like a little light bulb. Where we shine it, flourishes. So if we're shining it on negative things, or for example, some offhand comment that somebody made recently and it's still looping in your mind, we're going to have that loop. That loop will become a mood. That mood might become something worse. Depression, anxiety. It might become a habitual pattern for which you will definitely be using your tea tree and many other things. And that might become what seems to be your personality. And then you think, oh, I'm just like this. And you don't know how it happened. But I promise you weren't like that when you just came here to this world. And if you choose to shine your light on what's positive, on all the positive people around you, look around you right now. These are all people who are looking to heal. If you shine your light on that, you shine your light on your breathing, what happens? You become more spacious inside, you become more vast inside, you become more attuned to the potential in yourself and in everyone around you, and everything changes around you. I love that.
Now, Desiree, I've got another question for you. So, most of us navigate life through our feelings, and I think this is specifically what Elena and Ange were talking about. In fact, we're so in control of that internal dialogue and those feelings that we create. Now, how important is it that we pay attention to an emotional reaction we have towards something? And how can we use essential oils to help us better navigate our inner world?
So, in summary, we're really talking about listening. Yes, listening to ourselves and listening to our emotions. They are screaming loudly. So instead of going into denial or avoidance by picking up your phone and watching a bunch of things, take just 2 minutes before you just grab your phone, right? 2 minutes and just sit there, and I want you to feel that anxiety. I want you to feel the fear. I want you to feel the panic and the worry. Because those emotions, they all have a different effect on qi, which is known as energy in Chinese medicine. We have yang and yin. You've seen the symbol, yin and yang, all right? So we're going to have emotions that are more yang in nature, which is an upward and outward sensation. It's rising, okay? And then the yin emotions are going to be more inward, centering or descending down. Like sadness, fear has kind of a sinking sensation, whereas anger has more of a rising sensation. So what you can do with your oils, practical application, use oils if you are feeling this constriction, tension, use opening essential oils like your evergreens, like your Douglas fir, like your black spruce that we have now, the Siberian fir, the eucalyptus, the rosemary. Also, if you look at citrus, doesn't citrus have an opening feeling to it, right? Upward and outward. So when you're feeling sad, this is why citruses are amazing for the mood in that manner. If you are feeling like you need to come in, like you're scattered all over the place, right? So all your energy is all scattered. Bring it in by using wood, thick oils like patchouli and cedar wood, and balance that draws the energy in and holds a place for the yang to get grounded in the yin. You guys may know some Chinese medicine yet. So listen to yourself, smell the oils. You intuitively know you are brilliant. You do not need a degree to understand what I'm talking about.
I want a key takeaway, right? Because sometimes I think we need to be an expert before we can take action, and that's not necessarily the case. So we've talked a lot about essential oils and mindfulness and moving to a better emotional state. And my next question is for you, Melissa. Now, help us to better understand the importance of taking a holistic approach, a heart, mind, body approach to our emotional health, and what that might look like.
Yeah. So I loved this question because it actually helped me to really define what emotions are. I don't think I ever really took the time to distill it down into a definition that made sense to me as a practitioner. You know, when we look at the mind, emotions are really an outward expression of what is happening in the mind. And also, emotions are an outward expression of what is happening physiologically in the body as well. So when you're considering the mind, what drives our mindset is our beliefs. And our beliefs over time will create emotions, particularly for long-term emotions like emotional patterns. So for example, if you grew up in a home environment that gave you the messaging that the world is unsafe and fearful, you might find yourself living in a perpetual state of anxiety. You know, as you age, then as you grow in the world, not necessarily age, but as you grow, what happens then is our whole outlook on our life and what's possible is based on that belief pattern. So what's really great about essential oils is you can actually use them to help to change those belief patterns. One of my favorite ways to do that is to take inventory on how you're feeling. I think a lot of us live our life mildly uncomfortable, if that makes sense. I think a lot of us might live our life maybe feeling tension here, or here, or here, and it's not always physical, it's often emotional. But again, that emotion, those emotional patterns can be based in a subconscious belief that we adopt every single day that we wake up and get out of bed. And you can pull that essential oil out, like if you just do a scan of yourself every day, how do I feel? Where am I holding that tension? Do your best to identify what that emotion is, and then find an essential oil that's going to help you shift that emotion into something that you do want to feel. I love even giving myself permission to acknowledge that I'm feeling nervous. I suffer from anxiety. It's something I've dealt with for most of my adult life. And so for me, I get to ask myself, where am I holding that anxiety? And I can go to my oil box every day and pull that out. Now, one thing that we just got introduced to today that's going to be so awesome for people that are in a place where you're ready to let go of old beliefs and change your mindset and step into a new, mindfully choose what that new emotional pattern is going to be for you, is black spruce, because it helps to release blocks, emotional patterns, right? So you can pull out black spruce, it's new to me too. And then you can pull in maybe a passion oil if you're looking to open up your heart. You can choose. You get to be the alchemist in your life. And then also when you're looking at the body, you know, your emotions can be an outward expression of your body. We can't forget that our physical health does drive emotions. When you're looking at emotions on a molecular level, you know, 90% of our neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, which really create the experience of joy and peace and happiness. When we have imbalance in those neurotransmitters, we literally lack the capacity, the physical capacity, to feel the fullness of joy, happiness, contentment, or peace. And so 90% of our neurotransmitters are created in our digestive tract, you guys. And so many of us walk around with digestive issues, and maybe you know about it, but maybe you just have accepted that bloating is normal for you, or that burning sensation after a meal is just how you are, right? But I would actually invite you to check in with your body. Do you feel tired 2 hours after you've eaten? Are you bloated 2 hours after a meal? Do you deal with heartburn? Do you deal with indigestion, inconsistent movements? Hey, that's your body waving the white flag at you, like, hey, I need some TLC and I need some reharmonizing. So some oils that we were introduced to today that could be really helpful for you would be the celery seed oil. Like Dr. Hill went through how the celery seed works on all those different levels of your digestive tract. That could be really great. You can pull in the cinnamon oil if you need to work on recalibrating the flora in your digestive system. You can bring the PB Assist or the Terrazyme if you need to work on the mechanics of your digestive system. Because what you can do is you can work on optimizing that digestive tube so that your natural capacity to create adequate amounts of neurotransmitters neurotransmitters are physically there. So you can pull those essential oils in and day out and bring in those elements of a totally mindful therapeutic approach to adapting your mind, your mindset, and your beliefs, and also working on reestablishing a more healthy body physically, more capable of establishing healthy neurotransmitters.
So we know how to maybe push through experiences now with essential oils. But Rebecca, my next question for you is, can we, through the use and practice of essential oils, offer the body a new experience to whatever is a new way to experience whatever is happening around us?
Absolutely, and I think we've heard some good evidence of that right here in the circle. There's wonderful research on essential oils that show that there's even some changes that we see genetically as we move through the use of essential oils onto the next generation. There's that sort of hope that we've influenced the cellular structure enough that we can leave an impact. So certainly in our life, we want to be using these daily, and we want to implement a system, if you would, to using them daily. I think that's critical to developing a habit, is having a good system in place. So maybe decide what time of day you're going to use your oils, put them in a place where you already are doing something. I mean, it can be as simple as setting an oil by your toothbrush, because we all hopefully brushed our teeth today. And so when we did, you could pick up Balance essential oil and massage that right on your ear. You could even use the new adaptive roll-on blend all over, and that can sit by your toothbrush. You can have, I know all of you are probably very good at carrying oils in your bag and using that, but I find that one of the issues that I face is just remembering to get them out and use them. So it's just putting them in places where we can see change. But I do want to say that, the research in emotional intelligence shows us that we need to be aware, self-aware is the first step, and mindfulness is definitely that. We want to be aware for the purpose of managing our emotions, and then we want to be aware of others, and we want to be able to be aware of others so that we can manage those relationships. And all of that process requires empathy. So those are the pieces that we look at for having good emotional intelligence. I love that we have essential oils as a tool to increase our emotional intelligence, because just the very act, like you just described, Desiree, of thinking of what you're feeling and reaching out to an oil for a solution, that very action is a step in emotional intelligence. And just so if you aren't aware, research on emotional intelligence says to us that our likelihood to succeed in life actually doesn't even have anything to do with our IQ. So for years we thought IQ was everything. We wanted to be smarter so that we could be better and more successful. And ironically, it's not that. It's the things I just suggested to you. It's how emotionally intelligent are we? That is going to increase our ability to succeed in life. So definitely teaching this to our children, love the statistics you brought up, Elena, passing on to the next generation a tool where we can be mindful and emotionally intelligent. And I will just say I love the emotions kit alone, because even as a parent, if you teach your children to go to the wheel and just to pause and connect to what they're feeling, and have them spin around the wheel and say, oh, I'm feeling angry, and there's an oil for that, and they can learn to use that. That is teaching your children emotional intelligence by using your emotional aromatherapy kit, which I love. doTERRA offers us so many solutions.
How powerful that we have even those resources as a guide, right? So, and I love the idea of passing this along to our children and our loved ones and being able to support them as well. So I have time for one more question. And my question is for you, Ange. You have a ritual that is rooted in mindfulness, focused on designing your day. Since we can't control life, how do we create conditions that lead us to possibilities?
Yeah, I've learned over the years that the world will grab you by the hand and spin you in circles all day long if you allow it, or if it's open to negotiation, right? So I think all of us have started to feel, going back many years now, the weight of the accelerated rate of noise and information and pressure really coming at us, right? So being mindful in this area is really about deciding to honor what's most important to you and not letting the world decide that. So I think it's really important to have a daily design. I want to talk about that quickly, and what that can really look like for all of us is deciding how we want to feel, first of all, coming from a place of what is most important to me in order to live a life that's aligned with what I value, right? So it's thinking about things in our day that are going to bring out the best in us. So if we value feeling strong and confident, we want to make time for exercise, for example. If we value connectedness with our children, we want to have a shut-off time for our work hours. If we want to feel more centered and grounded, then we want to have parameters around our social media. So really designing a day that satisfies those values is important. But bookending, so Becky just talked about the importance of having your oils, where you're going to use them. I think that's a really important piece we overlook. So a morning and an evening ritual is really important, because that might be the only time where you're able to have those tools there and nourishing and supporting you in that way. The other area would be a weekly design. So thinking about your typical week and making sure you have space for everything that matters to you. And I do want to offer one really important note here. I think we all would benefit from saying no a lot more to people and experiences that do not align with our values. A real good place to start is to cut out the noise first before you go adding anything else in. So I do want to offer one last practical piece. We're all going to rush home from conventions, super inspired and topped up, right? And I think it's common to want to run home and tell everyone about everything we learned. And if you have a team, right, you're probably already preparing your PowerPoint. You don't need to do that, they'll give you that. But before you do that, your travel time home is sacred. Take that time to think about you and think about how you can write a new daily design for yourself. And think about what a new oil routine would look like with the new oils. Let it start with you and ripple out from there.
Wow. So we all have a homework assignment. So our time is up today, and I want you to all just join me in thanking this circle of brilliance that we've been able to participate in today.